We're here in Monte Carlo for the Rendez-Vous de Septembre. For AM Best TV, I'm Richard Banks. And I'm joined now by Andy Moore, who's London market leader for PwC. Andy, it's great to see you again. Welcome.
Great to see you again, Richard.
So one of the delights of Monte Carlo is to see what research PwC brings down. You always bring down something interesting each year. This year, it's your Global Runoff Survey. Tell us a bit about the findings.
Yeah, so two pieces we've produced in the Global Runoff Survey. It's in its 16th edition, so really popular with our clients, and there's a lot of insight in there. The headline is that it's a stable market, but with cautious optimism for growth. And that's reflected, 90% of people saying that they're expecting some deal uptick over the next 18 months, particularly North America, continental Europe. But we're also seeing 80% of people saying they do expect more capital inflow into the market over the next 3 years. So we are seeing some real positivity, even though the deal activity in the current year has been a little more subdued than we've seen perhaps in other periods.
So what do you think underpins that optimism?
I think it's a combination of factors. I mean, we've seen, US casualty still continue to be troublesome for some carriers. And so whenever you see that kind of activity, there's always going to be an opportunity in the legacy sector to package some of that up, give somebody some balance sheet relief and give them more capital opportunity on the underwriting side.
And so are the drivers of runoff the same as they've always been? Have there been evolution, development?
There's been some evolution, but the core of it is still very much as we've seen over a long period. It's about the pooling and packaging of risk, taking it off, commonly still through loss portfolio transfers. But we are seeing an increase as well in finality solutions. So a bit of an uptick in people looking for the kind of Part 7 mechanism and the like to really get things fully off the balance sheet so that they can deploy that capital into underwriting.
And you talked about fresh capital coming in. What attracts investors to the legacy sector?
That's a really interesting question, because I think for a long period of time it was sort of the unknown and perhaps sort of some may have said less interesting part of the market. But I think that's really changed. So we've seen lots of private equity coming in, and what they're seeing is longer term stable returns. So you're seeing large balance sheets, and particularly with the increase in investment returns that have been available for the last few years, you're able to get both an underwriting turn on some of the claims activity, plus making a good investment return.
So the other thing that people have always got an eye out for when they're in Monte Carlo and here at PwC is the banana skins. What have we expected this year?
Yeah, so again, another long-running survey. So Insurance Banana Skins is now in its 10th edition. And I think this year we've seen probably one of the biggest shifts in the risk landscape, according to the nearly 700 people that we surveyed from around the globe. So the top 3 risks are all technology related, and that's the first time we've seen that. Cybercrime stays at number 1 and is really seen. It's the highest rated risk that we've seen in the survey. People really focused on the threat actors, the threat landscape, and how they're going to protect themselves against what they see as being not even a sort of risk, as a sort of it is going to happen, and how do you mitigate that? But the second one, up from number 7 to number 2, is AI, and the third is technology. So that's a real shift to 3 technology risks. Climate change is in at 4. It's number 1 for the reinsurance sector still, though, climate change. So we do see for reinsurers climate change being that risk and not a future risk, a present risk.
So AI is something that a lot of people have been talking about. Can you give us some insight into the opportunities and the threats that AI presents?
Yeah, and it's exactly how people describe it as being that combination of a risk and also an opportunity. On the risk side, I think, strangely, people were calling for more regulation because they actually are concerned about unregulated AI and how that might get used. And of course, the links into cybercrime, which then impacts us on the other side of things. So the interaction between AI and cyber is very real to people. On the opportunity side, I think we are starting to see proofs of concept turning into viable products. So we're starting to see people look at what was conceptual and putting it into practice. In one of our sessions today, we talked about a seeded retool that we've developed, which allows the ingestion of just vast quantities of unstructured data, but turning it into really structured data solutions that people can then interrogate and use. And so it's taking some of those real life examples, showing people how it works in practice, that I think is bringing it to life for everybody.
Andy, one final question, if I may. one thing is being missed today that's going to be really important in the future?
I think it's probably the link between AI and people. So as we've got this point around how AI is going to, help us be more efficient, give us more insight, I'm not sure that we're thinking about how the people who are still going to have to use it, oversee it, the human in the loop, as it's often called, how are we going to train those people to make sure that it works and that it doesn't make mistakes? I don't think there's enough education on it anywhere, let alone, whether that be in industry or certainly not through the education system. And I do think that is something which we're going to have to rapidly remediate because AI is not going slowly. So,
Andy, it's always a great pleasure to talk to you. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Richard.
For AM Best TV, I'm Richard Banks.